welcome back to That's Life with John Carver. My guest today is Mr. Jon Wright. Thank you for coming in today, John. I greatly appreciate it.
No problem.
Some weeks ago, I shared online that I want to invite some guests into our studio and maybe share a story or share a journey that they have gone through over the years that might inspire people that may have some struggles, or maybe they've had some challenges that they've tried to overcome and maybe found it difficult to get through it. So John was one of the people that responded, and he has a story that I think is going to touch a lot of you, that's going to give you some hope that even though you're going through a very difficult time, there can be a good end from that time, meaning that you can grow through it, you can evolve through it. So again, welcome back to the show today. Why don't you start at the beginning and kind of share with all of us what your story is?
Okay. From a pretty good middle class family. I was born and raised in Baltimore County, a town called Essex. And I was the youngest of three kids. I had really good parents. I was taught right from wrong as a kid. They supplied me with everything I needed as a young child. Got a lot of the things that I wanted, and had a pretty a relatively normal childhood. So as a kid, I really excelled in sports. I played a lot of baseball and soccer as a kid. My dad was always my coach, and I loved sports. That's a big part of my childhood, and it's something I'm very interested in now. And then throughout my childhood, my parents were always big on school, doing well in school. So I didn't really try very hard in school, but I always seemed to do relatively well. I had about a B average most of the time, and that's how it went. Now, growing up in my neighborhood, like I said, I'm the youngest of three kids. My brothers are 7 and 8 years older than me, so I hung around a lot of older kids, and my brothers experimented with drugs and alcohol through their teen years, and some of their friends introduced me to marijuana, and I think I was about 10 years old or so the first time that I tried marijuana, and about say around 13 I started smoking marijuana pretty much every day with some kids that I went to middle school with. And at this time I was highly involved with baseball, traveling around the state, traveling up and down the East Coast, playing baseball. That was pretty much my main focus, sports, school, and then, my whole free time was devoted with hanging out with friends and, smoking pot.
So let me kind of pause you here for a few minutes or so. You're active in sports. You were doing, I think, good in school.
Yeah.
What was that intersection look like? What did it look like when you met these kids that invited you to do drugs? When you were doing good in school, your parents were big on you doing good in school. Mm-hmm. They were very involved in sports with you, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. What caused you, or what was that image or that storyline that got you involved with the wrong crowd?
Well, growing up, I was always a pretty shy person, and I never really felt like I fit in, even though, like, looking back on it now, I really fit in with the other kids. But I don't know, that was just a feeling inside of me, and I realized that once, people that I was going to school with realized that I had tried marijuana with some older kids, and that's the thing that they were involved in too, and they seemed like the cooler kids at the time. So we just kind of related on the same plane, and took off from there. So, I think
So your shyness, I'm hearing you say your shyness was a reason because you didn't like to be shy, I assume, correct?
I don't like to be shy, but that's just kind of how I am, I
Right.
guess, until I get to know someone.
Right. But you thought that these kids that were outgoing, the drugs could potentially help you be more outgoing. Is that correct?
And that's pretty much what it did for me.
Okay, got it.
Helped me fit in.
Okay.
So,
So fast forward now through, you were involved with doing some drugs from a child, actually. Where were your parents? Were they aware? Were they did they have an inkling that maybe you were involved in stuff, or no?
No, I kind of hid it pretty well. Because, like I said, I did well in sports, did well at school. And, on the weekends, I'd hang out over a friend's house, smoke weed, just kind of hid it from them.
So you stayed active in sports through high school?
Yeah.
Okay. And then once high school was done, you did what? What was the process from high school?
At that time, I was like I said, I was very active in baseball, and I kind of went from playing sports. My interest, I kind of hit like a turning point where it was like, go forward with sports, or go after this life of partying that I became very interested in and really enjoyed. I ended up going away to college at West Virginia University, and there, I stopped with all sports, and just kind of focused on having fun, and that led me down a very long and miserable path over time.
So let's back up a year or two. In your email, in your notes, you said that you had an injury in sports.
Yes.
And I don't want to give the information away. I want you to do that. But as a result of that injury, some things happened. Can you share that part of the story?
Yes. My senior year of high school, I injured my back diving into second base, and I was prescribed painkillers. I think it was hydrocodone. And, at this time, really all I had done was, marijuana and a little bit of alcohol here and there on the weekends throughout high school. And, I loved the effects that the opiates, the painkillers gave me. And I think I got prescribed them for about 3 months. And then, after that, when the prescription ran out, I liked them so much that I started buying them on the streets from people I knew, and that's really where my opiate addiction started out, and I found the drug that I really truly fell in love with.
So that's a very interesting term you use, because that's not the only you're not the only person who I've heard here today talk about how they've fallen in love with something, whether it was a pill or a drink. Can you explain to all of us what that exactly means? Because some of us who have not walked in your shoes don't understand that concept. Falling in love with a drug. Explain that one.
Yeah, I guess it was just pretty much the feeling that it gave me. Like I said, I was always kind of a shy, nervous guy, and when I would take, a painkiller, it would completely change me. I go from the shy, nervous guy to, the outgoing, funny, confident person that, fit in everywhere. And, that's really what I wanted, was to fit in. So, I think just because it produced that effect for me, like I said, I fell in love with it. And, if I didn't have it, that's what I wanted, because it made me feel good. So
Interesting.
So I was looking for a way outside of myself to make myself feel good, and that's what the pills did for me.
Again, your words and your concepts always stir up some things with me. But you said that you were looking for something outside yourself to make yourself feel good.
Yep.
And that can preach right there for 2 hours. I can preach, it really can.
Yeah.
Because so many of us, I think a lot of us, struggle with that or wanting that outside stimulation or an addiction or an item or a human being or an object that can make us feel whole instead of working on us on the inside to make us feel that we're okay who we are, which again, I'm jumping the gun quite quickly. So you went through high school, you got addicted to these pain meds. Now, were you addicted to these pain meds going into college? And if so, kind of take us in that journey.
Okay. Now looking back at it, I can say I, definitely was addicted to the pain meds. By the time I went away to college, which was about 6 months after I had hurt my back.
Okay.
It took me a long time to admit that I was addicted to them. But looking back on it, when I first went away to college, I took a couple pills with me, but not a whole lot. And once they ran out, I had trouble sleeping. I was getting sick, and at the time I didn't really relate it to the absence of the opiates, and I didn't know nothing about withdrawal symptoms at that time either. But I kind of always related it to me, going away, from my friends and family, being in a new place, being uncomfortable. But looking back at it now, I know that I was really going through opiate withdrawal. So.
And that lasted for how long?
It was pretty bad for about 2 weeks when I first got to school. And then, I went through time, throughout college, especially my first year at college, I took opiates here and there, but it wasn't as regular as when I was back home in Baltimore. So I would go through the withdrawal symptoms, and then I'd come home for, say, Thanksgiving or Christmas break, and, take pills the whole time that I was back. And when I would go back to college, it'd be the same thing again, a week or so of, feeling like crap. And I just didn't realize exactly what it was at that point. But,
Now, there was one night you talked about in your email that you were, again, I don't want to give his story out, but there was this one night, probably among several over the years, but this one particular night that you blacked out. Can you kind of share that evening?
Well, that was pretty much a whole day.
Okay, sorry.
I started out the day smoking marijuana, and that morning I got a prescription of Xanax from a friend, and I think I had a little bit of pain, opiates, Percocets that I had taken, but I didn't have a whole lot. So I think I started out the day with marijuana and, Percocets and Xanax. And, come afternoon time, all that was left was marijuana and Xanax. And, I just proceeded to take Xanax all day. And, for me, when I take a benzodiazepine like Xanax, I don't know, I guess it makes me feel good, but I feel like it wears off quick. So I had 90 of these pills, so I just continued to take them throughout the day, and I was, eating them and sniffing them at this point. And, at some point I just blacked out, and I was selling drugs on college campus. I was breaking into dorm rooms.
For what? What was the reason? To get more drugs, or to get money, or what was the reason? Wasn't there a reason?
There really wasn't. I mean, like I said, I don't even really remember this. I'm telling this story from what the police report said.
Is that so? Okay.
Yeah, so
Wow, you don't remember hardly any of it.
there's bits and pieces, but I don't really remember much.
Wow.
So I ended up taking like 46 milligrams of Xanax throughout that day. It was probably over a 12-hour period. And woke up in central booking.
And this is in York, Pennsylvania?
Yeah, at this time I had transferred from West Virginia University to York College of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yep.
And you were studying what? What was your big goal back then?
Engineering.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
So you ended up in jail, actually, right?
Yep.
And you were there for how long?
Just overnight.
Overnight. But then that led you to a treatment program. Kind of walk us through what that was like and what you learned from it and what that picture looked like.
So that whole experience got me into this program called Drug and Alcohol Treatment Court.
So let me interrupt the story a second. So you were still in college at the time. So this severed that college journey for a time, or no?
Yes, I actually got suspended for a year from York College of Pennsylvania.
Okay, I understand.
And so this happened in the spring of 2008, I believe.
Okay.
So I got into drug and alcohol court, and during my suspension from York College, I ended up going to community college in Pennsylvania, and got an associate's degree, while I was in drug court. But the big thing that I learned from drug court, that I got out of drug court in York County, was going to 12-step meetings. That really introduced me to that stuff. Through drug court, I also had to complete IOP, which is intense outpatient rehab. And I had a couple of slips while I was on drug court. That was the first time that I had to go to an inpatient rehab. They ordered me to a 6-week inpatient rehab. I had to do a couple weekends in the York County prison, and I also did about a month in York County prison at one time. That was the last sanction that I got through drug court. And from there, they made me move to a recovery house for 6 months. And, from the recovery house, I moved back in with my girlfriend at the time, and continued drug court and ended up completing it. I think it took me about 2 years to complete drug court. And if you do everything correctly, it should only take about 13 months to complete it. So, I had a couple hiccups in the beginning, but I ended up getting through it.
So you ended up back with your parents, I understand, and you went through everything that you just explained. But then there came a time when some old friends came around, or you made some new friends, and they kind of encouraged you to get involved into some harder drugs. Can you kind of take us there?
Yeah. Starting where I just left off, after drug court, as soon as I got finished drug court, I started smoking marijuana again immediately. Like, soon as the day that I graduated drug court, I was smoking marijuana. Within a couple months, I was taking painkillers again. And like I said, I was in a relationship with a girl for a little while, for a couple years, and she stuck with me through, all that, legal trouble. And for me going back to, using drugs and alcohol like I was doing, before all my legal troubles, she had left me. So I ended up moving back in with my parents. I moved into my parents' basement, back down in Baltimore. And, when I got back to Baltimore, I started linking up with old friends, and by this point, they were into harder drugs. Some of them were smoking crack, some of them were shooting dope, some of them were doing both. And And after a couple months of being back in Baltimore, I found myself doing the same things. Started off with smoking crack, and about a month or so after I started that, I was shooting dope, and that took me down a really, really dark path.
So if you were to summarize, I mean, there's a whole lot more to this story and more details than we have time to share, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But if you can share with our audience here what you learned through all this, and also, I guess, as importantly, how your journey could potentially help everybody out there, or at least people who are struggling that are watching our show right now.
Well, I don't know, after using hard drugs for about 18 months, it really, I had pretty much lost everything. My family, they were still around, but they didn't trust me. I really didn't have any friends. And, it just put me, like I said, it put me in a really dark spot. Like I came to this realization in rehab, that, it just looked at my life and realized that I actually had dreams and goals when I was a kid. And I was 27 years old at this point and, didn't have nothing. Like the clothes on my back, that was about all I was left with. So like I said, I was introduced to, 12-step programs when I was in drug court I think that was about 4 or 5 years prior to this point. I got out of rehab and I started working 12-step programs, and that's where my life had started to change. And I didn't get it right away. It took me about a year and 2 rehabs before I was able to get clean and stay clean. And what happened the last time was I went to rehab, and then moved to a recovery house up in Carroll County. And from there I really jumped into 12-step recovery. It's just I don't know, I always tried to do it my way before that. Didn't take suggestions. Didn't want to admit that I had a problem with marijuana and alcohol. Like I tried to say that some things were a problem for me and other things weren't. When really, I found for myself that maybe I can drink alcohol or smoke marijuana and not have legal repercussions, but really looking at it, marijuana and alcohol always lead me to the harder stuff. So, like I said, it got to a point where I was on my knees and I was willing to try anything. So I was able to give everything up. And, by working that 12-step program, my life, started to change. And, I started to get things like, not just material things, but like real relationships with friends, which I haven't had since I was a kid. My family, I'm still building a relationship with my family. I have a little over 1.5 years clean and sober. And, my relationship now is 100 times better than it was 2 years ago. So it's just things like that, really got me to, stick with this thing and give it a shot. And the biggest thing that I've gotten since I've gotten clean and sober is a peace of mind and this happiness within me. Like I'm such a happy person now. And, like I said in the beginning of the show, like I was searching for that external thing, that can make me feel good internally. But, I don't have to do that now. Like I naturally, I'm a happy person, and I owe all that to good relationships that I have now, and for me a big part of my recovery is a spiritual life, and I wouldn't trade my life now, for anything. Like I said, I'm not, the most well-off person, but my life is heading in a positive direction. And, it's all from, the groundwork I've put in, the work that I've put in on my life. And it's just a very, fulfilling feeling. So.
What a journey. And we've only touched on that much of his story for sure, because there's so many details that we don't have time to get into.
Yep.
But I want to end the show by sharing with you the fact that if you're going through struggles, whether it's an addiction or whether it's some other struggle that you might be trying to get through by yourself, you're literally not alone. There's people that you work with, there's people that you go to church with, there's people in your neighborhood that you have no clue are struggling in ways that would blow your mind. So please understand that you're not alone, and there's help out for you everywhere. You just have to look for it. You look online and you'll have lists of organizations that can help you with what you're going through right now. Thank you, John, for being on the show today. I really appreciate your time. And thank you for watching That's Life with John Carver. We'll see you again real soon.